the ideas of resilience, readiness, and a willingness to work on the planes of human history to achieve a taste of redemption applies to the generation of the wilderness, just as those concepts are foundational in the life of Am Yisrael today. Let's put this week's Parsha in context. Last week in Parshat Behalotecha, the people complained about having no meat and wanted to go back to Egypt. This was an expression of their physical desires and, moreover, a statement about their spiritual, psychological outlooks. Were they really free? Were they drawn to their slave status and too weak or worried to embrace their future? This week in our Sidra, the people are led astray by 10 princes, leaders, later called spies in Deuteronomy. They rupture the covenant with God and deny the vision of Moses, God, and their ancestors. Instead of using their mission to the land of Canaan, because Moses did indeed send them, the 10 of them, along with 2 others, who are named Caleb and Joshua, whom we'll hear about later. Why didn't they use this leadership mission, this time together, to dream big, to design a plan to fulfill the covenantal promise? 10 of the 12 spies decide that the destiny of the Jewish people will not and cannot be fulfilled. This rejection of entering the land and building out Jewish society is psychologically and spiritually shocking. The people who were entrusted with leading the Jewish people, partnering with God, and shaping a nation based on foundational ideas of the ancestors, God's covenant with Moses, are willing to undermine a promise that had already been held up for generations. There were those who did remain faithful to the vision. They realized their place and their moment in history. They would need to be resilient, show their readiness, and remind people of the further tastes of redemption that awaited them in the promised land. It would take some hard work. Caleb and Joshua would lend their voices to Moses's and Miriam's to remind the people there was no going back. They were not slaves to Pharaoh any longer. How could they be satisfied if they were to go back down, make yiridah to Egypt, and not go up, as Caleb said, Alo na'aleh, we shall indeed go up. We can rise to the occasion. They took up the challenge of the wilderness journey and helped to refine the generation who left Egypt. Caleb and Joshua were ready to embrace their destiny and march forward to the promised land. They would not give up, and they would not give in to groupthink and defeatism. Did the spies see their mission as evil, or were they just scared to lose their lives? What was it that truly kept a minion worth of Jewish leaders one step away from a land promised to them generations ago, from embracing their destiny? The 10 spies, which constitutes in our minds a minion, a meaningful symbolic number in Jewish tradition. A minion undermined the plan. We can only imagine the depth of sadness and feelings of defeat that took the wind out of the sails. Instead of the excitement of the journey to freedom, they felt the sweltering heat of the desert. They retreated from the mission and rejected the call to embrace nation building on the plains of human history. Their job and task was to create a future of holiness, moral steadiness, and a new kind of kingdom that rejected the tyranny of Egypt. And when faced with challenges, setbacks, and confrontations, their vision of collaboration and compromise could temper the warfare and violence usually associated with nation building. At first, the 10 spies told the truth. We went where you sent us. Indeed, it's a land flowing with milk and honey. This was the dream and Jewish destiny. But these 10 leaders did not motivate their people to embrace their status as instruments of God's holy covenantal plan. Instead, they crushed the Jewish dream in one moment, calling the land evil and making their own people feel weak and unable to rise above their slave status. This could not be the generation who inherited the land. More, they called the land evil for all intents and purposes. They stomped on the vision for the Jewish people like a foot crushing an ant. The Ramban explains that a word the 10 spies used reveals their true inner sense of self that led them to be so negative. Ephes, Aleph Fe Samech, nothing. We'll never be able to do it. The people are too strong. It's impossible. Ephes Ki Az Ha'am. We're nothing. The people that dwell there are too strong. They were unable to see themselves as making dreams come true. Nachmanides characterizes the 10 spies as being unable to embrace their freedom. They couldn't make the transition necessary to become soldier citizens of a newly crystallized nation whose identity would no longer be defined only by suffering in Egypt. There was a world of holiness in the new kingdom of Israel that was to be established. The spies lacked resilience. They were not ready. That minion could not taste redemption. What happened was a betrayal of the destiny of the Jewish people. It was a betrayal of the promise God had made to their founding ancestors. It was a betrayal of the vision of a people who would pursue righteousness, tzedakah, live according to the 10 commandments, the Aseret Hadibrot, and develop ways of learning from and worshiping God, to express gratitude and to gain altitude when it comes to leading lives of goodness. They crushed that dream. Now, maybe they were psychologically unprepared to take on such a towering responsibility. What could the leaders have done to further encourage the embrace of the mission? What could they have done to author methodologies, to establish more strength among their brethren, and encourage resilience even when challenging times faced the Jewish people? But that is the challenge in every generation. How do we recognize our past as what makes us ready for the redemption to come? How are past chapters the preface for a glorious future? To live the journey with its peaks and valleys, that is what creates more and more resilience to author our own chapters on the planes of human history. So what happened? Why did the leaders not use their leadership and their leadership retreat in the land of Canaan, the very land they would inherit, to rid themselves of their negativity? They wound up in groupthink and came back and issued an evil report. They appeared to themselves as incapable of leading the way forward. And that may be the saddest part. V'sham ra'inu et hanefilim b'nei anak min hanefilim v'nehi ve'einenu kachagavim v'chein hayinu b'eineihem. There we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, the giant, who come from the Nephilim. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. And so were we grasshoppers in their sight. Everyone was a giant. We were nothing. Ephes. We appeared as grasshoppers in our own eyes. We were grasshoppers in the eyes of the natives. How did they know what the others thought of them? They had not encountered them or asked them, struck up conversation or diplomatic relations. They projected what the natives of the land thought and told everyone that they thought us unworthy. We are like bugs who are coming or going to infest the land. They used the genocidal Egyptian description of the Jewish people about themselves. Remember back to the beginning of Exodus when Pharaoh said they would swarm and become too numerous. Let's call this the Ephes effect. Seeing yourselves as nothing, as your early oppressors saw you, as having no agency and no ability to overcome hardships. There's also the grasshopper problem. You see yourselves as nothing in your own eyes, and you psychologically project the same on others because you yourselves see yourselves as nothing. No redemption will come if the Ephes effect and the grasshopper problem take hold. The spies use buzzwords too. Amalek Yoshev, the Amalekites are there. That's as fearful as if you told Jews of modernity that Nazis were around the corner. Where was the leadership? Where is the conviction that we could take up the fight? The conviction was in the hearts and the minds of both Caleb, and Yehoshua, Joshua. Vayas Caleb et ha'am. Caleb stilled the people. El Moshe. He turned them towards Moshe's teachings, the way I read the verse. Vayomer, and he said, Caleb said, Alo na'aleh, we shall definitely rise to this occasion and rise up and take the land. Vayarashnu ota, and we will inherit it. Ki yacholnu chal la, because we are able people. We are the agents on the plains of human history. Vayas Kalev, he quieted the people and he told them they could do it. And let us rise to the occasion, rise above our status as those who would go back down to the status of Egyptian slaves. And the vision indeed not only embraced a Jewish inheritance of the land of Israel, but in the end, despite the discussions in Torah about the battles and overcoming other peoples, the vision includes embracing the stranger and enjoining the sojourner. As it says, "V'chi yagor itchem ger o asher b'tochachem ledorotechem, v'asa ishe reach nichoach l'Adonai." And if a stranger sojourn among you, and if there be those from outside your people who will become part of the great society you build. Offer an offering with them. There will be one law for you. Chukat olam ladorotechem. For generations, this will be the case that you'll have to create the bonds of friendship and fellowship with all those peoples. Kachem kager yehiyeh lifnei Adonai. You and others among you, the strangers among you, shall be together in order to serve the Lord and live by the moral code of Torah. That's the real message about the people and about their place in history and about the pursuit of building the society that Parshat Shelah is all about. There would be naysayers. There would be people that hold themselves like nothing, ephes, who have an ephes effect and a grasshopper problem. They see themselves not as the agents who could create the new chapters of history, to author those new pages that are founded on the moral code of Torah, that became the very heart and foundational ideas of Western civilization. That's the potential of the Promised Land, to be a laboratory for living out the values embedded in the covenantal framework of the Torah. That's the dream coming alive in the hands and hearts of the leaders of the generation who was redeemed from Egypt. In every generation, and on the shores of this great country, we must reject the ephes effect, as well as the grasshopper problem, seeing ourselves as small and nothing with no agency in realizing the visions of God and the best chapters of the holy texts that have arisen throughout history. Positivity about the covenant, the passion for the Jewish mission, the moral code of the Torah will set us all on course to live out this dream, to bring the metaphysical Promised Land to all places where we meet as Jews with one another as family and with those who sojourn with us. At the edge of manifesting their destiny, Joshua and Caleb would not stand for the subversion of the 10 leaders who tried to undermine the power of the divine promise. They capacitated people with hope. They readied the next generation. They educated how to be resilient, and they described the earthly redemption that is possible. In this story, told in our Parsha, finally, Caleb and Joshua used religious rituals to respond to the self-defeatism expressed by their colleagues. They fell on their faces in prayer. They tore their garments like with mourning. And we see that sometimes religious ritual is necessary to be the most reflective we can on the potential power that lies within each of us. It allows us to embrace our future and be part of manifesting our destiny. Shabbat Shalom.